We have a broken waste management system in South Africa.
There is the leak of waste to the environment that needs to be addressed.
Do you think South Africa's waste problem is something that we can recycle ourselves out of?
We lack infrastructure. More than 30% of our population doesn't have access to waste management. What is the root cause of that problem and how do we deal with it?
Whose responsibility is it to manage the waste?
Consumer has a role to play, industry has a role to play, municipality has a role to play, government has a role to play, so that it can be collected and recycled.
Plastics matter. Welcome to our brand new podcast where we talk about everything and anything that impacts the local plastics industry. One of the biggest issues of plastics is often the issue of the visible plastic pollution that we see in our rivers and streets and townships. And today, to talk about the issue of waste management, is it working? Is it not? How can it work better? I've got Anton Hanekom, who's the Executive Director of Plastics SA, and Bala, who's the Specialist Waste Management at SALGA. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bala, I'm going to give you a first opportunity. Give us a bit of an introduction. Who and what is SALGA and what is your mandate?
No, thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of this podcast. Indeed, I'm from SALGA, and we are the Association of Municipalities in the country. As you may know, we've got about 257 municipalities in the country, which are part of SALGA. So what we do, or my responsibility, is to provide support, advice, and do the representation of municipalities in the area of waste management. And in doing that, we understand that waste is a value chain, which includes or involves a number of stakeholders. So we believe that it is key that we bring or coordinate the role and the activities of different organizations or institutions as SALGA in order to improve this particular value chain in waste management. So that's basically what we do. Lastly, maybe just to indicate the role that I play, one of the critical part is to ensure that we've got the finger on the pulse of what is happening in the sector so that stakeholders, communities, also they understand the role that municipalities are facing, they are playing, and also some of the challenges that they're facing. So that's basically what we do from SALGA's side. Thank you.
Anton, help us understand a little bit, how does the plastics industry interface with an organization such as SALGA? Where do the two merge and cross over and collaborate?
Very often, or most of the time, I should say, plastics carry the brunt of negative perceptions because plastics is visible in the environment. So a big drive that we have is to ensure that we remove or minimize the waste that's going into the environment, and that what is available is that is collected and available for recycling in South Africa. And I think that's where the contact points are, is that we need to work with municipalities, and SALGA provides us that opportunity also then to have a central point where we can engage with. Yes, we do with national government. We engage with all sorts of different role players, but very specifically when it comes to municipalities is how do we operate, what is real roles and responsibilities, where's the issues that we can help. I think that's where this is sort of discussions and collaboration is quite critical.
Bala, in an ideal world, if resources, infrastructure is not a problem, what would the ideal waste management system look like?
It's where waste is avoided from generation, where we cannot. And obviously there are quite a number of stakeholders that need to play a role there. Where we cannot, then it is minimized. And if it can altogether be minimized, then we should then bring in the issue of, is it reusable? Can it be recycled? And can it be treated? And after all, if that's not working, then that's when it can be disposed. And the positive aspect of it is that the policy environment enables that. But obviously, what the reality of what is happening, it's a bit different from that. But that's the desired state of waste management in our view.
If I may add to that, for me, the ideal waste management system will be where all the things that Bala have mentioned, but where waste is available for collection. So it means all waste is collected and maybe separated, organic to non-organic. It's sorted. In other words, it goes to a central place where it can be sorted and then be available for recycling, and that we find solutions for the waste that is being generated. So that waste management system would allow us then to collect everything and make sure it stays within the circular economy.
So if that's the ideal world, is waste management a priority? Does it get the recognition and the attention that it deserves? Or why are we still seeing these mountains of waste lying and littering our country?
Well, if I can just come in there, you would know from the work that DFF has done just to estimate what we're generating as a country, which is quite a number of millions, above 100. So we're generating a lot, I must say. And actually, just to indicate that also still more goes to landfill site, which research shows that more than 80% still goes to landfill site. And additionally, the stats say indicate that just above 66.3% of households are receiving waste collection service. So you've got more than 30% that is still not receiving the collection. Now, the question is, where is the leak of these mountains that we see in public space? So there are quite a number of factors that are contributing to the leak. One being the issue, if I can just give you an example, the issue of backyard dwelling, which in most cases you would find municipalities and they provide for the main house, only to find that there are about 5 more behind the house that still need to be provided. So there is a need then to make that provision, but we can touch on what is being done about to deal with that at a later stage. But there is the leak of waste to the environment that needs to be addressed, obviously, but we're still generating more as well as a country, which I think there's a space to improve on how we're managing our products and all those things as consumers, and obviously the consumer needs to play a role as well.
If I can maybe just give context to the numbers, of the 108 million solid municipal waste that's been generated per year, and the numbers, if I correct, is around 2017, 2018, the study that's been done. Of that 108 million, only about 4 million is packaging, and packaging refer to plastics, metal, glass, paper. Of that 4 million, 2 million tons are collected and recycled packaging in South Africa. So very often we hear that 80% is not recycled, and we say, 80% of plastics is not recycled, which is not correct. In plastics, we recycle more than 28.7% of what we put on the market available for recycling has been recycled. So it's that context. The bulk of that is building rubble, fly ash, organic material. So one needs to be clear around that. Our perception is that we have a broken waste management system in South Africa because we lack infrastructure. We lack a proper waste management system. Bala mentioned that about 30% or more than 30% of our population doesn't have access to waste management. And that's the reality. So where do they get rid of it? Where does that waste end up? Unfortunately, it ends up in the environment where it's very visible, for which the material gets the blame. But we're not always looking at what is the root cause of that problem and how do we deal with that.
From a waste management point of view, Bala, is South Africa's infrastructure do we have the necessary infrastructure, or is it overloaded? Is it up to the task of what we're currently facing?
The scale of infrastructure differs from one category of municipalities to the other. You have metropolitan municipalities which have would have fair amount of infrastructure to collect and transport and dispose. Then you have a second category, which would be your secondary city. I'll give you an example, which would be your Polokwane, your Drakenstein and Rustenburg kind of municipalities, which also have a fair amount of infrastructure. Then you have your rural, and that's where the big problems are also in terms of the infrastructure. When it comes to metros, they handle more than half of waste that is generated. Mostly is generated, and research can attest to that if you look at the research. So most of waste, and obviously it goes with the issue of urbanization, because most of people, they live in urban areas, which are mostly your metropolitan areas. So that's where the issue of overload. And if you look at if you come to Gauteng, you've got Johannesburg, Tshwane, as well as Ekurhuleni. The northern part, they do not have a facility to take waste to. So the issue of overload is there. And there is a need then to explore. And we've seen other municipalities that are beginning then to look at alternative waste treatment, innovative. And I'm just saying that to demonstrate the issue of overload of the infrastructure that mostly your urban municipalities are faced with.
Whose responsibility is it to manage the waste? Is it industry or is it municipalities? Who's responsible and who owns that waste? Who needs to take ownership for it?
That's a good question. Maybe I should take it. When you look at the Constitution, Schedule B, Schedule 4 and 5, Schedule B, it's very clear in terms of whose roles is that. In terms of the Constitution, it's the role of municipalities. Municipalities have been given executive authority over waste management. However, as I've indicated, this is a value chain function. One institution won't be able to do it alone. Hence, we believe from our sector that the other role players, your informal settlement, your informal sector, your industry, working with municipalities. But in terms of the executive authority, that's the responsibility of municipalities.
But I think it's more than just municipalities or industry. I think this is a bigger group of people that needs to play part of it, and I think it's everybody. So consumer has a role to play, industry has a role to play, municipality has a role to play, government has a role to play. So it's true, it's a constitutional mandate of the municipalities to provide waste management services. But I think industry has a role to look at how we design products, what do we put on the market, how do we minimize to a large extent the waste that, or the material that's going into the market. Also based on the need of the consumer. The consumer has a role to put his waste in a separate bag or bin or whatever the final agreement will be, so that it can be collected and recycled. So the waste at the end of the day belongs to the municipality, but how do we engage around that and find ways that will deal with the problem, and that's pollution in South Africa.
Maybe if I can just come in also to add on what Anton is saying, I wouldn't say unfortunate, but by design, the municipality has to then keep the public spaces clean. But the origin of the product is, and that's what Anton is saying, which I agree with, it starts as a product which has been designed at the industrial level. And how do we design that product to ensure that it does not lead into waste that municipalities has to deal with? I think that's also another discussion that the industry needs to look at the design of the product, and also the communities as well. Once this product has turned into waste, they've got a role, because it's in the hands of you and I as the citizens or as the consumer. What do we do with that? What do we do with that? Do we put it, just put it in the open space? We need to put it at the right place. It should be in the bin. And only that cannot be used, it should be in the bin. But what the reusable, we should be able to separate. We should play our role as communities.
Correct, because no collection means no recycling, even if that product is 100% recyclable. Right, Anton?
If it's not collected, it cannot be recycled. So, and then coming back, everybody has a role to play. Different roles. But at the end of the day, we need to find a system that's effective, that will ensure that collection will take place and recycling will take place. And a lot of that is also enforcement at the end of the day. We see how many people driving and finish their meals and throw it out of the car window or throw it next to the road. So we need to address the issue. But the big thing is if there's no infrastructure, it will not be collected. And therefore, even if it's 100% recycled, if the industry design a product that can be recycled 100%, but it's not picked, it's not collected, it's not sorted, it will not find its way back into the economy.
I would like to pick up, if you would allow me, pick up a point from what Anton is saying in terms of the system that should be working. It is our view that system needs to be designed by industry working with municipalities and obviously the waste pickers or informal sector. So that, because if you go to almost every urban area of the country, when the bin is put out, there will be somebody who will come to look at the valuables. So it's critical in our view that when we design that system, then those informal sector, we bring them on board so that we don't create competition.
Something that we're seeing more and more of these days is the issue of the informal waste collection people, the informal waste collection sites close to urban areas where the waste pickers congregate. Let's talk a little bit about that. Are they helping? Are they hurting? Is it a good thing? Should we encourage that?
Well, they are helping. However, okay, let me qualify the helping part. Those camps or those sites that we see, I would say mushrooming, if that's the right word, in almost most areas, where waste pickers then they sort their material. Obviously, it's more dependent on being closer to where they need to sell the material. They are assisting. Otherwise, that waste would have gone to landfill site, which would have costed our members, which are municipalities, more to transport and obviously to handle that at the landfill site. However, there's a need to find a way of formalizing that into a sorting facilities, because in most cases they will be then the waste pickers, then they will be taking the valuables and leave the one that they don't want. And it becomes a challenge for municipalities. Then they have to clean after, which is an additional cost to municipalities. Otherwise, if we could have put that waste into the proper system that municipalities would have collected then. But it is something that we believe we need to find a way in as these stakeholders to sort of formalize those into sorting facilities.
I think we see waste pickers as a result of a waste management system that's not working. And it's true what Bala say, they will, when you put your bin out in the service areas, that's where they are operational. So when you put your bin out before the waste management truck will arrive to take your waste away, even if it's separation at source taking place, all the valuables will be picked. Sometimes the material that they don't necessarily need at that point of time. So when the waste management company is driving through, he's left with waste that is perceived to have less of a value, which mustn't make it economically viable for him to provide the service. On the other hand, I've collected waste as a waste picker, and I go back to this community next to the road where I then sit and sort it. Obviously, I've picked stuff that I might not have an immediate market or the price is too low, so therefore I will get rid of it. And the valuable stuff I will put in a bulk bag and I will sell it on a Friday or whenever the truck is coming by, I will sell it to a buyback center, which will then sort again, bale it, and then sell it onto the reprocessor. The problem is also, which we need to acknowledge, is that open burning of waste is a big problem in South Africa. Because now that waste is piling up in that community where they've done the sorting. Nobody's picking up the unwanted material that's lying around. And it's not just plastics, by the way, it's paper and cans and everything else and glass. So what happens to that? We're not allowed to have open fires, so at night we will quickly put it and burn it. It's very often next to a river as well, because if we can take for cardboards and we weight it slightly, it's heavier and I'll get a better price, or put stuff into the bottle. But also what happens is that the lighter stuff will be blown by the wind, ends up in the river, and then you see all these pictures of these rivers full of plastic, and we blame the material again. So what's the need for then, and how do we deal with that? And I think that's where we need to design a system where the waste picker can be incorporated in a proper environment, not at a landfill, not picking the variables from your bin, but where they can work in an area where proper sorting is taking place. We need to move away from picking what we believe there's value in to something that we sort everything that can be recycled, even if it's a straw, even if it's a sweet wrapper. Chips packets, it's 100% recyclable. It just needs to be picked. It needs to be sorted. It needs to get into the system. So we need to consider those sort of things as well, because it's very often due to a lack of something else that we see new systems being introduced. What will work for South Africa in terms of collecting our waste and making sure it's been recycled?
And what's happening between industry and SALGA and municipalities? What are some of the initiatives that are currently on the ground or in development that's going to address these issues or find solutions?
Yeah, there are activities or programs that we that are on the ground that are industry-led. Some they are, obviously I won't speak for industry, I'll speak for the local government. That local government collaborates or jointly implement with the industry. Quite a number of those that we can indicate. There is one that for me stands out in eThekwini, which brings in your producers or producers responsibility organization, Plastic SA as well, and that municipality of eThekwini implements together with that. So they varies. There is also one that I would like to just mention in Witzenberg. It's a small municipality in Western Cape, which we've been working with as SALGA. We developed an app which Witzenberg is one of the municipalities that is currently implementing the app, which is improving communication between municipality and citizens, where they've got recyclables. They are able then to log into the app and then send the information to the municipality, or where they see illegal dumping, then they can do that. So that's the tool that we have developed in order to assist municipalities and citizens, and we're currently rolling it out to municipalities. We're training municipalities on how to use that particular app. So there are many activities. Obviously, they like you've indicated, there's a space to improve, but there are activities that industry jointly with municipalities or with local government, they are implementing.
A project that we're very proud of, that we're involved with, and that's specifically in Mpumalanga, in the Bushbuck Ridge area, dealing specifically with Tulamahash and Acorn Hook, is where we're working with the community, working with the municipality, local municipality there, incorporating everybody in that area. So it's traditional leaders, it's the political leaders, it's municipality, where we're looking at working. We're not taking over the role of the municipality, because that's not our function, but to support them and to help them and guide them in terms of a process and how we can deal with that, how we can incorporate the informal collectors in that area as well. So this will deal with separation at source that needs to take place. There's a newly built landfill site, so we will put a beneficiation centre down there, and the whole purpose of that is that we collect two-bag system organic waste going one way. Hopefully there will be a commercial site for that where it can be composted, but all other recyclables go into one bag. It then goes to the central beneficiation centre where it will be sorted. So it's always going there. And from there, what we can sell in the market, that will take place. The rest, we will look at how we can beneficiate the material that's remaining in the community and to the benefit of the community. So it's an area where you will create jobs, you will stimulate the local economy by creating products and things that can be used. We sit there very close to the Kruger Park where there's a big tourist influx. How can we create even products that can be utilized and that there's a story behind it that the tourists will buy because he cleaned up the environment, he created jobs, there's new businesses, there's etc. So that's the partnerships and things that we need to talk about and to find ways relevant to Africa or South Africa in terms of systems that needs to be implemented.
Is it something that can be addressed or implemented simply by throwing more money at it? Is it implementing and developing this infrastructure and these mechanisms obviously costs money and manpower and a lot of collaboration. Bala, maybe this is an opportunity for you just to lift the veil for us a little bit to help us understand how a municipality is funding their waste management.
Well, thanks. Obviously, the issue of just throwing money, it's not a solution, but there is a need for money. For example, the local government is usually underfunded, I must say. We have done a study as SALGA to look at what is costing municipalities to deliver or to provide waste management service from the household to the final point of treating waste, which is the landfill site. And there was huge disparity in terms of what is being allocated and what is costing municipalities. But that's a discussion for another day. And we're engaging at the intergovernmental relation regarding that part. But there is a need to look at how do we improve also efficiency as well. We cannot take away that from one of the things that we need to do in order to weed these inefficiencies. But the function is still, I must say, less prioritized comparatively so with other basic services, which is one area that we're looking at as SALGA to say, how do we get our decision makers, which are your councillors or politicians? We're going to have elections this year. So next year we're going to have a new crop of leaders of local government. We're planning in intense induction, put specific looking at issues of waste and environment. So we're going to then to be training and educating all the new councillors who will be responsible for waste management and other environmental functions. So that's one area that we're looking at to say, how do we lift the profile of this function comparatively to other basic services? But there is a challenge in terms of the priority and also in terms of the funding. How do we then explore innovation in order to then better deliver the function at the less cost that we're sitting with, and obviously while we're having those other discussions on how to increase the funding. But obviously just dumping money without dealing with the basics, it's still going to not get us to the desired result that we're looking for.
And having that long-term plan and that long-term vision, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do, and it has started with metros, to plan beyond the one term of the local government, which mostly is 5 years, to look beyond that. Most of the metros they've got 10-year, 20-year vision, which then includes also the vision of waste management beyond the 5-year local government term, so that the new leadership comes and then doesn't mean that everything's going to start from the start afresh. So that's what we're trying to do, and it has already started to look at having a longer term plan.
It's all about capacity building. And yes, we're going through a local election. But as part of the ISO project in Mpumalanga, a big part of what we're trying to do is education, awareness. So it's skills for the people that will do the sorting and so on, but also helping the municipality understand the broader concept and what is the role and how does it need to do. It's about lifting that priority. Bala, you mentioned that as well, is that very often my personal view is that waste management wasn't the glamorous thing, the thing that was high and focused.
A priority.
It wasn't a priority, and hence, we focus on other things and we never put our attention to this. It has become very critical with all the pollution and things, and we're running out of landfill space. So how do we lift it up? How do we educate? How do we create that capacity so that with the support of industry, and again, we not want to do the role and the work of the municipality, but how do we capacitate and help them to implement an effective system? And coming to a system is also, implement what's relevant in that area. What needs to happen in a metro is different to what happened in a rural area, but it's different to what happened in Europe. So what is relevant to our environment and what do we need to implement? Do we need to compact a truck in a rural area? Maybe not. Maybe there's another way of dealing with it to make sure that it's collected and sorted, but where the community can benefit from that as well. So, yeah, it's really raising it, but think differently around the problem that we have, and not just putting more money into the system that we have that we know is not working at the current moment.
Yeah. On that topic, Anton, how important is local procurement when we talk about waste management?
Besides waste or recycled material is critical. And you'll see that if there's a guaranteed takeoff agreement, specific with government, is that a lot of companies will do a lot of investment to develop and enhance that specific area or the products that they have. So local procurement, if I just think through the process, you can make different products. You can make bricks, you can make paving bricks, you can have all sorts of other materials that can be used by the municipality. So let's take hands around procurement as well. So if we made a brick from recycled polystyrene, for example, let's have another team that will make the brick and another one that will go and build houses with that. It's not just insulated, it is a very light, easy to work with product. In that way, again, you stimulate the economy, you keep it there by the community and for the community. So that will, and I talk high level, there's obviously a lot of things that one needs to consider, but local procurement will help to do that. Even in terms of dustbins and things, let's find somebody with the skills that can fix a broken wheelie bin for that community, or fix chairs and things. So there's different ways of looking at how local procurement can assist, provided, yes, we do it in the correct way.
Is that something that SALGA has an influence on? Can something like that become a national policy, or how do you influence those local procurement decisions, for example?
Yeah, well, it is something that we support. Obviously, it stimulates the uptake of the material that otherwise would have been would have ended up at the landfill sites in case of some of the waste that we're managing. So, in terms of the policy, there are sections within SALGA that sort of drives that. Our local economic development section, the one of their priorities is to look at how then to build SMMEs, by then stimulating that local procurement. And obviously that cuts across all the sectors, including waste management. So it is something that we look at and also influence national government. When then there are discussion at intergovernmental relation parts, we do advocate for things like those. So it is one of our priorities.
It does create the market as well. So end-of-life solutions, if you talk waste, it also reduces the logistical cost to move waste from Mpumalanga to Johannesburg to be recycled. So what are those things? So it's really thinking wider than just, you refer to that, than just waste management. It's how does all these things connect and how do you make it viable? At the end of the day, you want something that's economically viable. We cannot continue putting money into systems that is failing. So how do you create something that is working and can support the people in the community that's involved with it?
If you have one message from SALGA and one message from the industry to South Africans that you hope will have an immediate impact on waste management, the way waste is seen, what would that message be that you would want to communicate to South Africans?
Well, for me, from our side, is to indicate and appeal to the communities that waste management is not only the function of municipalities. It requires all of us to work together and so that we're able to see the public spaces, our environment being clean. So while we join the efforts, we should be able then to achieve that. So that's our message to communities, to industry, government. Let's work together to attain the clean and healthy environment that we would like to see in our country.
I want to applaud everybody that's involved in the value chain, dealing with waste management and plastic specifically. Consumers for making sure that those that make sure that the waste is then responsibly put into a bin or a bag, that it can be collected, sorted and recycled. So for me, important is that a lot of work has been done in South Africa. A lot of work will still be continued to be done. We've seen huge recycling numbers that's far ahead of the rest of the world in many cases in terms of mechanical recycling. So if we all play a part and we all be responsible around that, I can only imagine how we can grow in this and make sure that we don't see any pollution in the environment around packaging and plastic specifically. That will require us all to work together. And I think that collaboration is critical. So wherever you are on the value chain, if you're uncertain, ask the questions or engage with the other parties to make sure that whatever we implemented is the correct thing and will have the right impact at the end of the day for us all in terms of how we manage our waste.
Well, if I can ask you just a follow-up question on that. Working with the waste on every day, you on the ground, do you think South Africa's waste problem is something that we can recycle ourselves out of? It's just a matter of telling people, recycle, you've got to recycle more. Can we recycle ourselves out of it?
Not really. Recycling is just a portion of the value chain. So there are other aspects of it. Your collection. If we've got collection systems working, sorting, and also the proper disposal of those that we cannot recycle and we cannot minimize. So we cannot just take the portion which is recycling and then we solve the problem. I don't think so. We need all of the value chain aspect. And as I've said, and Anton has made reference to that, it requires multiple stakeholders doing their part.
If we say that the waste system is broken and we know there are problems, or we know more or less where it breaks down, what do we do to fix it? What mechanisms, what building blocks need to be in place to fix and make a tangible difference to the waste management, the way waste is managed in South Africa?
Let me try to give you an answer on that. yes, it needs collaboration. So I think that is fairly much a given, and we all agree around that. We also very often ask the consumer to recycle more. And then the question is, but I want to do it, and how do I do it? Because where do I take my waste? It's too far, there's no facilities and so on. So what's the way forward? I really believe we need to find a solution for South Africa, for our unique circumstances, for our context, where, first of all, at the household level, they might have a 2-bag system where they can separate the waste simply by putting all organic hygiene products, your high absorbent products into, like nappies, into the organic bin, and that can be collected, and hopefully we will create a proper commercial composting facilities. All the other waste, we're not asking anybody to sort it, we ask them to put all recyclable material into one bin, one bag.
This is all materials, plastics,
That's
paper,
plastics,
aluminium.
glass, aluminium or metal and paper. And let that be collected and taken to a central point. For me, it's critical that collection system, that collection process is separate to the sorting facility, because that's a different. You get paid to collect the waste and take it to a central place. Your job is done. At the sorting facility, we can do all sorts of training and education awareness, but you really get people that's equipped and trained professionally to sort what is on his table. So it's a very simple process. We're not talking a high-level material recovery facility. We talk multiple of these sort of stations where, and it could be an old buyback, drop-off site, but you change it, you convert it into an area where informal collectors can come there. They can still pick on their own, for their own account, or you can create a different cooperative system. So I would prefer more a company sort of structure, and they will sort the waste, everything that's there. Remember, they no longer need to walk distances, and therefore you only pick which gives you the immediate value of the material. You don't need to bend down 1,000 times to pick up a straw to get a kilogram. So it simplifies the process, and it's easier to do that. Therefore, you will maybe still pick up all the PET bottles and the HD milk bottles and things like that. But at the end of the day, the straws, the chips packets, the sweet wrappers, those things will be picked, and it will go with the material stream to be recycled. You're not going to separate and just have chips packets, for example. It will be part of the waste stream. And there's a direct link then to the reprocessor, which makes it more effective. It's clean material. Remember, the old system was it's contaminated because it goes to the landfill. Now it doesn't go to the landfill. It's not compacted, it's clean. Cleaner than what we had. What's left then, that's where we need to look at how we design end-of-life solutions where we find, because now suddenly everything is one place. So how do we deal with that? And that's where the researchers, where academia, where industry, government needs to come together and say, it's fit for purpose material, we need it, but how do we deal with this? And remember, I said all waste. So paper and cans and plastics, everything will be there, and it will be separated, sorted, and be utilized. And that's where you will then find solutions, and even through local procurement, you will find applications for that as well. For me, that is the sort of direction that we need to go to make sure that everything is collected. Everything is going to a central point where it can be sorted and then utilized, be it going to a reprocessor that will make new raw material from that, or we find new alternatives, and there's many examples of that, where you can utilize that material in another life, in another form that will benefit the community. What does it do? Create economic growth. It helps the local community by creating jobs, create awareness and education. It stimulates the activities in that specific community.
Is that something that SALGA can get behind or are supporting?
Yes, I would just also like to add on what Anton is saying. You would know that we are sitting with a problem because there is a leak in the system, in the areas where the waste is being collected or where there are services. The other aspect is the areas where there are no services. Now, just to add on what he's saying, Anton is saying, the closing of the leak would, in our view, entail ensuring that the service quality is improved. How do you do that? Areas that, improve the schedule, or adhering to the schedule that waste is being collected. If it's Tuesday, it's Tuesday. Where it is not possible, then improve communication. And that's one area that we believe, working with municipalities, we trying then to improve on that. So obviously issues of breakdowns will happen, but the key issue is to communicate with citizens and say, we're not going to collect today, we'll collect tomorrow, things like that. So that's one area that would assist in improving or closing the leak. Number two, the issue of areas where there are backyard dwellings. We make provision for that, because if we make provision for the main house, we're going to have problem of the other houses that are behind the main house. So that's one area that, from service point of view, it will be able then to assist in addressing the leak. Rural areas and your peri-urban, which does not have waste collection service, mostly. We currently, and I hope you would allow me to say that, working on trying to find or exploring rural waste management option or mechanisms. That's one area that we've identified that we've got a challenge, because where is that waste going? Obviously, there are logistical challenges that sort of impedes municipalities. The issues of settlement pattern, where you would have one settlement or one household here, another one 20 kilometers or 10 kilometers far apart, and no facility. So there is a need to explore with research, and Anton has spoken about the issue of research, to say what could be the best, or not best, but a viable option to provide a service in those areas, so that we also close that particular leak into the environment. So working with researchers, we need to explore the possible option or mechanism to deliver services in those particular areas.
Bala, for several years now already, we've repeatedly heard the dangers about landfill space filling up, that South Africa's running out of landfill space. But we still see everyone, it's still business as usual. How big a problem is the issue of landfill space in South Africa? Are we heading into problems on what's the long-term plan or the long-term view on landfill space?
Well, the landfill space is a challenge, and that challenge it varies from your metropolitan municipalities to secondary cities, then a little bit at your rural municipalities. But it is a major problem in your metropolitan municipalities, because as indicated earlier, we're still taking a lot of waste to landfill sites. And there's a need to reduce that, the amount that is going to landfill site. But it is a problem. Hence, you would see some of the metros or some of the bigger municipalities beginning to explore alternatives. You've got the city of Johannesburg that is looking at the alternative treatment waste technology, and many others. They're looking at your biodigesters, anaerobic digestion initiatives or technologies. So it is a concern that requires closer attention, for municipalities to reduce as much as possible, and beginning at a metro level. Also from SALGA side, it is one of our priorities. We just had a strategic planning and issues of waste to energy and the support to municipalities. It is one of the things that we're looking at. Maybe not necessarily waste to energy, but looking at accelerating initiatives for diverting waste from going to landfill site as a way of saving the existing landfill airspace in metropolitan municipalities, and obviously your secondary cities as well.
I think if we implement a system that will collect all waste, have sorted, find applications for that, that will help us to move less material to landfill. So theoretically, one can say zero waste to landfill. We know that there will always be some stuff that will go to the landfill. Even also on the organic side, and we've heard about the anaerobic digesters and things like that. So yes, it's areas that we don't necessarily pay that much attention to, and that we need to explore further. We need to do work around it. And maybe it's small scale. Maybe it's not these big monsters that we need to feed. Maybe it's in that area what will be the right thing for that area to deal with organic waste or whatever the case is. So again, let's look at solutions that's practical and that will work for our context, work in our environment, and it's relevant for South Africa.
I would like to thank my guests, Bala Nengovhela, Specialist Waste Management at SALGA, and Anton Hanekom, Executive Director at Plastics SA. Thank you, gents, for being here today. Thank you for sharing your insights and your learnings, and good luck with the mammoth and important task that you both have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed the show, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. We are here for the industry, talking about the issues that affect the plastics industry, and we would love to hear your input. Until our next one, goodbye.